welcome to another episode of What's Going On Here. It's awesome to see all you guys in the chat, to see you guys joining us here this evening. We have a couple of announcements before we get started with tonight's episode. First off, we have a new Patreon goal. We have been making a big old fuss about it on social media, and for those who are already patrons, we posted on the announcements this week. We did a big old video and everything. We have a new goal of $1,000 a month, so we're actually creeping pretty close. We got about $83 left a month, and once we hit this goal, we're gonna be doing a brand new show on the Basically More podcast. We're gonna be playing Delta Green. We're gonna do a Delta Green mini series, which is huge, very exciting. We did a Delta Green one shot back in October for Halloween, and it was just a riot. So we wanted to do something a little bit more Delta Green, which is very exciting. We have a new Refer a Friend program. For those who are on Patreon, we've talked about it quite a bit. If you refer a friend to join our Patreon at any tier, you yourself get a freaking nice chunky D20 that it's still on the way. We have the master. We have the master in the mail right now, but I still have yet to make the actual die, and we'll post pictures of that when it comes out. But it is live, so if you are able to refer somebody right now and get it confirmed, we will absolutely be sending you one of these beautiful D20s. They're about double the size. Here's a D20 that I've made, and they're about twice as big as this sucker here. So we're excited about that. We also have new stickers in the shop, baby. So head on over to basicallygoodpodcast.com/shop and get yourself one of these new logo stickers. They're about 3 inches by 3 inches, so real good size. Slap them on your laptop, your cat, your dog. We're very excited to have those there now as well. We also have Wizwiser glasses in the shop still. Plenty of Wizwiser. Plenty of dice still available. That's enough shilling from me. Let's go ahead and get on with the episode. We want to go ahead and thank... that's so freaking funny. Come back on! Get back! I'm about to show you, dude! Jace, get on! You're out of the scene!
I'm so sorry.
Come on. Okay, we're shifting over. He's coming back. He's coming back to us, and oh my gosh, he's on mobile, dude. He's on mobile,
Are you
dude.
in the freezer? He's in the
In
freezer.
the freezer. My
Your
phone.
phone got too hot. Oh my
My
god.
In the freezer. This always happens. Huge
Incredible. Incredible.
That is,
Yeah,
you
I'm gonna
can't
go
pay for this
quick.
stuff, everyone. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Make some introductions here. We have some new faces tonight. Let's start with the fridge. We got Jace joining us. Jace has been a patron for quite some time. He actually had his own pre-pod. Jace is our resident. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it. We're not going to make this about you.
Just say it. Just say
He's
it.
a farmer, dude.
But he's also a therapist. He's also a therapist.
Right. We just spent the whole time. Talking. The whole pre-pod was about him being a farmer, which wasn't fair of us to do, but it was still one of my favorites we've ever done. Jason, we always like to kick it off with your favorite ice cream. What is your favorite ice cream, sir?
Bluebell Great Divide. It's got chocolate on one half, vanilla on the other. It just has my heart. It's been the go-to since I was a kid.
Wow. There you
Does
have
the separation
Stop
of the
this.
vanilla and chocolate, like, does that like do anything for you, or is it just being able to have both? That's great.
It's being able to have both. That's because I want the chocolate and the vanilla in my cup. So maybe
Right.
it's the desegregation of the
Yeah, within
that I
the
get
cup
to take part
when,
in.
as it's melting together. Yeah.
That's right.
And next we have another huge fan. You might know him as Too Much Dog. But here we have Dylan. Dylan, thanks so much for joining us. Longtime supporter, longtime fan, obviously a member of the latest Ep Gang. Dylan, what is your favorite ice cream? I was saying before we did this show that I was like, I hate that this is what we do. Like, I hate that this is the tradition we have. But it's actually still kind of fun. So what is your favorite ice cream, Mr. Dylan?
I am very plain. And I can't say vanilla, although that would be like one of them. So I'm gonna say strawberry. Like when I get
Okay.
my favorite form of ice cream is definitely the milkshake, and my favorite flavor of milkshake is strawberry.
Dude, there's something about like the acidity of the berry with the sweetness of the ice cream that just
Yeah, it's like a creamsicle, like just it's brought together very well. I don't know.
Yes. No, I think that's a good answer. I don't know if we've had a strawberry. Have we had a strawberry?
I don't think so. I think that's our first
Not that I
strawberry,
know.
actually.
First
Yeah.
strawberry, yeah, for sure. I do love. Again, I'm just so happy to have a mobile. This is a first. We have a mobile stream coming in from Jay. So thank you so much. Again, and moving on, we have some wonderful guests here. We have Silas and Ronnie. Thank you so much for joining us again tonight on another episode. Tonight we're going to be discussing, before we dive in, we're going to be discussing some spoilers. So if this is your first time watching the stream and you are not caught up with episodes 110 through 113 of the Basically Good podcast, I've always said pretty harshly, like, get out of here. We don't want you here. But I'm just warning you that we're going to be talking. You can stay if you want, but we're going to be talking some spoilers and breaking down some events that have happened on the most recent episodes. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We start in episode 110 of CSI Cantargo. Our heroes kind of pick up after a run-in with the Triad, the Scarlet Triad. Kalari separated from the bunch. Frizzygig and Aaron and Urkel are left in the Sunset Imports, kind of dealing with their own problem. And I want to kick it off with a question for Silas. Re-listening to this episode, I would just like a quick health update. How are you completely recovered from mono?
Yes. I can talk. I can function. I cannot spend the first 2 hours of every day with my eyes squinting, laying in bed because my head hurts. It's a great time to be alive. Like, the week after my throat got better, I remember thinking, like, man, being at like 60% health has never felt so good.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. But now I'd say no, like I'm doing great as far as side effects and stuff go. Virtually gone. Now I'm just terribly contagious, but I feel great.
Oh gosh.
And you can hear out of both ears now, right? You're completely stereo.
I can. I forgot about that part too. Yeah, no, I had an ear that was like super closed up, and I couldn't really hear out of it for a while.
That's why it's
so yes,
called,
I
that's
can
why it's
hear
called
out of
mono,
both ears.
right? Yeah.
It's called mono. Oh, never mind.
God.
I just the joke just.
That's a boo. That's a boo from the audience for Ronnie. No, this is a great episode. There's lots of RP that takes place. One thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly is Ronnie. We found ourselves in a situation where Kalari is having to deal with like a charismatic situation by herself. She is caught by the Hell Knights 2.0 and has to deal with potentially being arrested. Maybe, and she ends up rolling an intimidation check, throwing down a hero point, and scoring very, very high. And Aaron makes a comment or I guess Jackson makes a comment where he says, "This will be the first time that like we've ever had a player that has tried to get out of something by throwing their name out there." You said, "I am a Lord of the Breach. I am an Eladir executioner." Do you see now that Kalari is pretty confident, I would say, in her status to be able to kind of throw this weight around? And how does it feel also to be strong in intimidation and not very strong in diplomacy?
Well, I think going back to the moment, I think I called us the Eladir Excavators, which is definitely just like a hockey team. That's like not even
The
close to-
excavators.
But yeah, great question. I think first and foremost, I was terrified because aggression typically isn't the way you can deal with law enforcement and get out unscathed. I think I had some really lucky rolls, and I think I had to blow a hero point there, which I think, Chance, being the good DM he is, would have found a way for, you all to get me out of prison. We've done it once, we can do it again. But still, like, I was really scared, I think that's like a couple episode detour, if Kaleri gets arrested.
Right. No, 100%. I was ready for it.
Which would have been crazy, would have been cool, but would have been a little bit crazy. But yeah, I think the using our reputation bit, I don't know. Like, I feel like Kaleri and the party just generally, like, we're not really concerned with status. In fact, like, we spent a long time in hiding, right? Because, like, we were like, oh shoot, if we're too open about who we are, then either the Triad or Vero specifically is gonna sniff us out and kind of do us in.
Right.
So I think, like, but like in the process, that was like level 6 to level 10. Like, we've covered a lot of ground since we like started trying to be a little bit more under the radar. So like I think this was the first moment like Kaleri kind of realized, wait, like, we have multiple names, like, we are famous in multiple places, we've got a little bit of clout,
Right.
and not being the most charismatic person in our party by far, probably the least charismatic person in our party by far, Kaleri was like, what is a way that I can be intimidating but not like insinuate violence, and well, that's just to be like a do you know who I am kind of thing, like, not like I'm going to kill you, but like there's going to be like a lot of hubbub about if you throw a hero in jail.
Yeah, right. If you arrest a hero, right.
So I think that was the main thought process behind it. I don't think she's like, oh wow, we are, the cream of the crop. We're like big britch people.
Big britch.
That doesn't make any sense.
Big britch energy.
I was
We
thinking,
are big
like
britch.
big for your britches, big britch. It didn't make any sense. I'm gonna apologize for that. But I think that was the main thing is I was like, in what way can I use my intimidation and not cause more problems if it goes poorly, right? Because
Right.
like if that goes poorly, they're just like, you're lying, right? Like, and I was telling the truth, so like I didn't have to roll a bluff or anything, or they just hadn't heard of us or something along those lines. So I think all in all, it worked out well. Kaleri pulled a card out of the Urkel book, talking to Urkel a ton, and figuring out, hey, I
Right.
can use my clout as a weapon. So,
Right. There you go. No, I think that was great, and I think I love that that moment in the episode. Obviously, we wrap this episode up with the Vasterstill family being drugged through the mud, knowing that they are working directly with the Triad, signing contracts, getting money off of them. It was a great little conclusion, but we run into episode 11 or 111, forgive me, Adventures in Kite Flying, after kind of this discussion and trying to figure out what to do next with talks with Hundi, and also kind of just figuring out where we can utilize the new Hell Knights. We decided to run out to Kite Hill, as that being kind of the place where they get the word out. And without much time to lose, the adventurers kind of rush out there before the Triad strikes. Silas, there's a great question that Jace has regarding kind of this mini boss. There's this scene where Nolly, the halfling that we meet, kind of is stating, "Oh, we have time. We're not in any danger." And then two Velstrax show up, and we start fighting them, and the combat kind of ensues from there throughout the rest of the episode. But Jace, I want to hand it off to you if you have a good old question you want to ask Silas here.
Yeah, Silas, what was it like to get the death blow for that Velstrack? I know it feels a lot like Ronnie is dealing the final blow like 90% of the time, which is how the team is built. But as a listener, it was like super satisfying for you to get that moment and for Chance to be like, Silas, how do you kill this guy? And I thought it was epic how you did it, but I wanted to hear, how that was, what it felt for you.
It was super satisfying as a player too, because you're exactly right. Like I don't get that very often, and I love as a player that I think it's fun to ask as a DM too. But that just like, how do you do it? Tell me what happens.
Oh yeah,
that feels so good.
Yeah,
it was great to finally have my chance to do it. Yeah, it's a weird, like, it's a team effort. It's
Right.
everybody did. And then as far as relative damage goes, Frizzigig probably did less than Smiley Colere. But when you're the one who gets the last hit, you have this, you're like, I mean, but I did it.
But
you
did it.
But I did it.
And
Maybe someone else did, but I did
to
it. Like,
break down, I think it's worth breaking down what actually happened, right? Like, Frizzigig, there was it was healing because this Velstrak heals every turn.
Yeah.
So it had a hole and it was healing, and then the bomb landed in the hole and exploded it. So very cool imagery as well,
It's almost like the Legolas and Gimli, he's got his axe buried in his head and he shoots him. He's twitching, and he's twitching because he's got my axe in his nervous system, kind of like I'm the one who killed it, it's like the competition. It's not a competition, but at the same time it is, I don't know. It's
it's a competition more for the ones like me that don't get it very often.
Right.
And then Ronnie's like, what are you tying? Yeah. Ronnie's like Legolas at like 45, 46, 47. And I'm like, the elephant only counts as one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
Yeah.
No,
For sure. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it was great. I loved it. I would like to do that lots of times.
Yeah, there's also a good question that Jace had regarding, and this kind of becomes relevant too in the later episodes that we'll discuss here soon. But just I think it's good to get some clarification. I said Jace. I'm sorry, Dylan. Did I say Dylan? Jace? I meant Dylan.
No, you said Jace.
If I said Jace, I meant Dylan. Just regarding the healing capabilities of Frizzigig, Dylan, would you like to share that? Because I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, I
now.
completely forgot about this, but when Urkel, in the most recent episode, spoiler alert, when Urkel was in ferocity and dying, he was still standing because he's a half-orc, you had Guppy dive into your pouch, grab the potion and put it in your hand, which, clutch move, obviously. But doesn't Frizzigig have an ability besides like quick alchemy and quick draw where he can throw a potion at an ally and heal them? Doesn't he have ranged healing?
No, that is a thing that you can take as an alchemist.
Okay.
And I have considered trying to work it in. Since I decided to do the dedication for the dual throwing thing,
weapon.
it's hard to fit in a spare feat.
Gotcha.
My build is pretty is hurting for different options. But I might be able to take it later just to get some like you said, some ranged healing in. I think more important than that, when I took the feat, the level 1 alchemist feat that allows me to have Guppy as a familiar, I was mostly doing it for one of the if you haven't looked through in Pathfinder 2, the familiars have a set, they have 2 different sets of abilities they can take, and they can take 2 total from those 2 different sets. And one of them is they can kind of store in their body an extra set of reagents. And then so Guppy for a long time was just giving me an extra set of reagents every day, which when you only have, the difference between 5 and 6 is when it comes to, you're only able to make 2 bombs per batch or something like that. That's fairly significant.
Right.
But now I'm at the point where Guppy is able to do some other things. And now that the healing part of Frizzigig's kit has become such a bigger deal, so I have a feat called Quick Bomber that allows me to draw a bomb in the same action that I throw it in. Which normally, if you don't have that, it takes an action to reach into your bag and pull a bomb out, and then you throw it. So every bomb you throw costs you 2 actions, which means you can only do 1 per round unless you already have one in your hand. That sucks. It's not super viable. And but so for elixirs, there is no quick draw feat. It would take it something has to spend an action to pull it out of its hiding place, and then another action to administer it. So Guppy it allows me to another thing about familiars is once on your turn you are allowed to give up one of your actions to give your familiar 2 actions. And so Guppy has one of his, and I can change it every day, but the one that's been consistent is, I think it's called Manual Dexterity, is one of his like abilities he can take. And it just means he has like, he's got like arms and fingers that he can grab stuff. And he can do anything reasonably like a hand could do, which includes reaching into a bag and pulling something out. And that has become super important because it allows me to do, Guppy can pull out 2 elixirs and he just has them there. And then I am able to spend 2 actions giving them to someone. So I'm able to heal for twice as much during my turn as an alchemist who doesn't have a Guppy.
That's almost, to me as the listener, that's like a peer behind the curtain. Because like as someone who's an inexperienced player and who has never actually played through Pathfinder, like I've played 5e and I listen to podcasts, and the majority of the podcasts I've listened to have been Pathfinder, but I have never physically myself played Pathfinder. That is just a huge look behind the curtain at your like feats and stuff like that. And like I don't want to encourage or discourage you from taking feats that you want, but that I know y'all talked about at one point. Y'all talked about that ranged healing feat where you could just bomb your allies and just heal them, kind of like like a video game character, just shooting your allies with.
What's that Overwatch character who shoots?
Yeah,
healing
exactly.
bullets?
That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Ana, yeah.
Just like healing your allies with bullets. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. But like, I don't want to encourage you or discourage you because I think you're doing great either way. But that's kind of what I was worried, because I was thinking like, can't he just throw a bomb and heal him? Like, why does he have to like do all this?
Dig it out.
Exactly. That's
right.
That's huge. And I think hopefully it benefits more than just me answering that question. That's a huge look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I'll say another thing about Guppy while we're talking about it, too, is now that Guppy doesn't have to use one of his like daily abilities, and I get because I only get to choose 2 of them. And now that he's not using one of those to hold in a reagent for me, so I can make enough bombs, because I have plenty of bombs now. I'm able to leave some slots open for quick alchemy, which is, at the beginning of your day, you use your alchemist reagents and you can make larger batches of bombs and stuff that are stable throughout the day. But if you leave some of those open and you don't use them at the beginning of your day, you can later on take one and use it to make one of anything you could normally make just kind of on the fly. And you're able to add some special abilities to it as a result. One of the abilities Guppy can take is if he has that manual dexterity one, which he does, he's also able to do quick alchemy. On his action. So I often, and it's kind of it depends on the action economy and how it works out. But most of the time, if I'm doing a quick alchemy, it's probably really Guppy that's doing it. Which is kind of huge. So Guppy could. So now I'm also able to do I can do 2 quick alchemies for 1. Essentially, I can use 2 reagents and make 2 different things. Guppy will basically pull out my reagents, because that's another thing that would probably normally take an action, and can make 2 bombs. And then I can throw both of those on my turn. So I can do something. That's something that would normally take, what is that? 1, 2, 3,
like your whole turn,
4, 5.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I can do something that would have taken me 5 actions 4 levels ago in 3 actions.
Yeah.
I would like to imagine that Guppy has an alchemist lab in your bag of holding.
There's a full lab. Now I will say,
you just got a table.
There's a great No Nat Ones, I think, on he's everywhere, but he did a big Pathfinder 2e breakdown on alchemists recently, and spent a ton of time talking about how versatile they are. And I think Frizzigig is one type of alchemist, right? I think he's very much built out the kind of alchemist he is with the bombs and kind of quick alchemy and using the range throwing to build that out. But then, like, I love looking back at like who Grau was, you know, he's an alchemist too, but the dude's got a longsword and he just drinks potions all combat. So it's a
Yeah.
very cool class. I think there's so much that they've built into it, to where you can have two of the same class and almost the same ancestry even, and they look completely different, you know. So I do love seeing the way that Frizz is going versus how other alchemists can go, you know. It feels very
and I'll-
unique to Frizz.
I bring it up too. I think that would be a cool thing at the end of this if we did some, like, you talk about breakdowns of our characters and how we build them,
yeah.
and like it would be cool to do a pre-pod of just like I've played 10 levels of this. Should you play it?
Right.
And I will say, the type of alchemist that, well, alchemy, like the alchemist class is super versatile and you can do a lot of things with it. There is one type that is extremely viable. And there are other types that are a lot harder to make viable. And Grau, goodness, I can think of his name, is definitely the best type of, like just
He is a
pure,
good
like,
kind of
on paper
alchemist.
stats.
Yeah.
That is if you're considering it and that sounds fun to you, that's a really good character.
Martial
so, like, if you're-
alchemist. Who knew?
Yes, that's kind of the, like, it's it is the your resources are so limited until you get to level like 9, really, that you can never utilize your full potential unless you're doing mutagens, because mutagens last a long time.
Right.
And that's kind of what Grau is doing. You just buff yourself up and then you swing your sword.
Right.
And that's like the especially for the first, I don't know about the last 10 levels, but I'd say first 10 levels, like, that's the most viable build to get.
Right.
I don't know how it scales past that, but yeah, if you're thinking about it, I would keep that in mind.
Which we have heard, and I don't know which episode it gets dropped, but I want to make sure we at least mention it, that he is around.
Yeah.
like
he's kind of
Grout
kicking around here.
is here, which is crazy, and I just think it's very fun to have him as a recurring character.
Yeah.
Which is dope. I don't want to dive too deep off that end, but we gotta move on. We have to move on. You guys are talking too much. We are no, I'm just kidding. we are moving into 112 Long Roads Coffee House. So this is the episode where we kind of wrap up everything at Kite Hill and run out to see what's going on at this second location that Hundy was talking about. That's kind of a safe house, the Long Roads Coffee House. And we begin with a really cool scene that I don't want to gloss over. We are faced with a lot of townspeople at this moment, and they're wondering if Nidal is to blame. The Nidalese people, like Helica that we met a little bit earlier, is from Nidal. He's a diplomat from Nidal. And they are the ones usually attributed to these Velstrax, and that's actually kind of the reason he's there, is to talk about Velstrac labor a little bit. And we have a really cool scene where there's a moment where everybody is potentially kind of talking about blaming Nidal, and we have a moment where Kalere addresses the crowd and speaks, even though she's almost dead, about how she doesn't believe that it's the Nidalese. She says, it doesn't make sense that this is an actual threat from Nidal. It looks like it potentially could be a setup or something similar. Does Kalere have any idea, Ronnie, who may be behind this? And does it feel more natural now for her to step up and address crowds like this?
Right. I think that's a great question. And when you were just talking about that, things like this always like bring up to me the character player divide that's like kind of always there with D&D.
Right.
And it's like hard to make everything make sense and make everything natural, but that's just the state of the game. You're playing in a different person's body, someone you've created. But it's like I don't know if Clary would have naturally thought that, but like I did, right? And so it's like it has to come out, versus like you could have the highest charisma in the game, but if you don't know something charismatic to say, you kind of just fall on your ass, right? Like, they're like, you have to like. There's a lot of interplay between, you know, what the player can find out and
Right.
what their character can actually do, and sometimes that gets a little bit gray. But I think in that moment, Kaleri has suspicions that it's the Triad, but mainly just because she doesn't like the idea of blaming the outsider, blaming the other. And I think that comes a lot from her background with like her people, right? Like it's
Right.
always like, you know, the outsider is bad. Like we'll welcome them in and we'll be nice to them or whatever. But like, you know, there's a lot of hesitancy towards interacting and intervening and being a part of community with other people. So I think she was like, okay, well, let's slow down here. We know there's this third party who is like absolutely without a doubt evil, and is likely pulling the strings in the background, just, you know, thinking about all the things that Vera was doing, and he was just one part of like this massive organization.
Right.
So I think that that's what she was thinking. She was like, this is, you know, a very easy case of weaponizing the other and pointing fingers at the foreigner, right? Like, and saying, you came in here and then these bad things started happening, right? And like, we already may have had some, you know, hesitancy about you, but like it's really hard, like, right? Because these are Velstrax, like the Nidalee like specialty essentially.
This is what they do, right?
This is everything they're about.
Right.
And so I think I think she was like, it's just too obvious. Why would somebody who is coming into a new space and knows that they're already under like a really tight, like they're in a tight space, they're under a microscope, why would they then act out in the most obvious way possible? That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. And maybe was, I think that's a really good point. And I think, you know, as much as you're like, I don't think Kaleri would necessarily come to that conclusion. I think after experiencing what happened in Eladir, she may come to the conclusions like, this is way too obvious. I've seen how the Triad works, and this doesn't look like it. Like, this doesn't look like a group of people coming and just throwing their like potential, from what we heard from Helica, is like their potential like boon at the city. Doesn't make any sense. It's almost like an act of war to just come in and be like, I'm gonna send what I think is a good asset to your community on your people. Like, so I thought that made perfect sense for her to just kind of come to that conclusion, connect the dots, connect the wires, as well as kind of what you mentioned. You know, I just knocked my headphones off my head on live TV. But, like, yeah, what you mentioned, right? Like, it just makes it's too obvious. And I don't think that is necessarily, you know, the wave. And I think she did a good job, like, sharing that with the people, sharing that with the community. And if anything, I mean, would you agree with saying like there probably just wasn't even enough? What's the word am I looking for? There's not enough evidence that it is them, because they were like, is this the Nidalees? You know, they were looking for an answer. Is that? I mean, I think that was maybe safe to say that there's just not enough to know.
I think that also, like, the Scarlet Triad is like just fresh on the mind.
I do think. Let me replug in my headphones that fell off here. I'm a disaster. Hold on. We're back. Sorry. Tragedy. No. Moving on.
Wait, I think Dilly had something that he was.
Oh,
he wanted
great!
to say.
I didn't have
It's
my
okay.
headphones
It's okay.
on. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I just said that I think Scarlet Triad is fresh on the mind because of the recent happenings at the docks. Because when you pulled the halfling up, he mentioned one, that was the Scarlet Triad's like, you know, secret base they were operating out of at the docks, but also like they were he mentioned a woman in a demon mask, which just like mask is just a trigger word to the cold opens where you know the Scarlet Triad's like dark council is meeting and they're all wearing masks. So I don't know. It's just it seems fresh.
Yes.
Exactly.
Let's revisit that. I mean, you have a question kind of centered around that, and I believe it's the most recent episode that had that cold open. Is that correct, Dylan?
I don't
With
remember.
the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
so, but I do want to talk about that. I think it's a great question. Before we move on here, is there any general questions that our guests have that we would like to kind of throw in here before we go into meme of the month? Because there's some good ones.
Are we? Is this like all of the questions, the most recent episode, everything? Are we coming back to
We're
that?
gonna come back to most recent ep. But
Okay,
any
okay,
generic questions you have, there are some good ones that were shared, and I would definitely want to spend some time talking about those.
I can save my house roll question for later. My one about the demon mask was like, are y'all mentally prepared as players for like the imminent threat that is the Scarlet Triad in this area? Because like Eladier and Julius Vero was such a huge thing. Like, Julius Vero has so many resources. He's got his fingers in Eladier. Like, he's the big man in charge. And then like the woman in the demon mask is mentioned at the docks, and this is a peer of Julius Vero. And based on the cold open, we know that the council didn't even look at Vero in a like good light because he had already died once. You know, they were just kind of like, peon Julius Vero, like he's just like the butt end. He's the butt end of the joke, like this woman this person in the demon mask, is just like obviously just a huge deal. So I don't know. Are y'all prepared for that? Are y'all just kind of like blindly trusting Chance as the game master to just kind of like kind of lead you in the right direction?
Yeah, I'm gonna be
Training
real.
wheels D&D.
Attention and remembering details as such is not my strong suit. So I'm not gonna say that I forgot about the woman in the demon mask, but I am gonna say it was not in the forefront of my mind. So no,
Also,
I'm not prepared.
y'all
And when
are
the
having
moment
to
comes, I will
survive.
be-
Y'all are having to survive imminent danger now. Like, y'all are being attacked by
Yes, that's it.
ghosts and ghouls.
That's it. It's not
Yeah,
any of my.
exactly.
That's it. It's actually it's not any of my flaws. That's what's going on. Yeah.
Well, I think I've got two thoughts revolving around that, Dilly. First, just like referencing like the imminent danger we are currently in. In a previous game that we played, a previous campaign, where we just kind of like optimized our builds, tried to go for the most damage. Like, we were essentially like a Destiny party that like could deal a ton of DPS in just like one shot or 2 or 3 shot bosses. Chance would always throw just like hordes of like small like enemies at us, and that was
Right.
always what would kill us. So
Yeah.
it was like we were never worried about like the big boss. We were always worried about like 20 zombies like screwing us over.
Right.
And I think that
Man,
is
yeah,
like
there were these like
just
5
indeed.
stupid zombie things, and they just mopped the floor with us. And we were like, these things are just little peons, little minion, brainless zombies, and we just could not. And then the final boss was like nothing. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was just that
The
one
final boss
stupid little
super
room.
Just get TPK'd
That was
by
supposed to be like a little like get them warmed up for the big one, and we were just falling on our swords.
Jeez.
But
Terrible.
the
Anyway, sorry.
the second part of that that I was just thinking about is it is one of those situations where I think the play pace that we've established with Chance, because we are recording this for an audience, is that he does have to do a little bit of railroading at times. Our sessions can't be too long. They also can't be too short. There's a lot of scheduling things. Like, we can't play several days in a row. A lot of times, we can't play for 6 hours.
Right.
So like a lot of those details kind of do go under the radar, but like, in an ideal world, like in a normal D&D campaign, you would be able to sit down for like 6 hours. You would be able to explore a city. You'd be able to ask all the questions you need to ask and search for all the things you want to search for. But that also takes time, and that does not sound good on radio. A lot of the time, like if you do some searching and like maybe there's 1 or 2 false leads, and then you find the third one in a relatively quick span, that's really interesting, right? Like, that's still like good. But like, I definitely know that there have been sessions of D&D that I've played in other campaigns where we spend like 4 hours doing absolutely nothing.
And your wizard has to make 10 spellcraft checks to figure out what the magic item does. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So I would say like we have a lot of things to piece together, and Chance helps us with that a lot. But I think generally if like we are ready as characters, I think that also has to do with our approach to what we've kind of been doing this whole campaign. It's almost been like everything is critical always. And I think we may have visited this previously in another What's Going On Here. But everything that's come up so far has been like, you know, DEFCON 1 almost. Except for maybe like some of the things that happened in season 1. You know, we go from, you know, being in the Mwangi and like there's this imminent danger of the cult like taking over and like all this like nasty stuff going on. We come back and Urkel is in prison and we have to break him out, and you know, we're worried about him like dying or spilling the beans, you know. And then so like at this point I think our party is just like highly attuned to stressful situations, and we're kind of just like cut down what's in front of us and stay alive.
Right.
And we haven't gotten a chance to really slow down yet. And I think that like in this few upcoming episodes, I think some of us are going to try to like maybe slow things down and get a little bit more of that exposition. So I'm excited for that.
Hey, but all cylinders firing makes for good radio, though. So
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say also, like, for the lady in the demon mask, right? Like, the demon mask, I think we killed a member of the Triad, right? Like, Vero's dead. So with Vero being dead, we just kind of killed him. I just kind of killed him. I just beat the tar out of his face until he stopped breathing. We didn't get to ask anything. So I think there's a little bit of desire to meet this person so we can figure out what the hell is going on. Because I feel like at this point, we gained a little bit of information about the Triad, but really, those who know the most, we haven't really been able to talk to one yet. So even if it's horrifying, even if there's danger that comes along with the situation, it's like a little bit of detective work that at least I'm excited to see more of once we, you know, meet this person, in hopes that if we can beat them down enough and get them to a point where we can interrogate them, we'll learn a little bit more about what's actually happening behind the scenes, because our characters don't know anything. Yes. Also, Akire's. Well, wait, I don't want to say anything because I don't know. I don't think it's dropped yet, so I won't say anymore. But it's some cool stuff. We got Akire.
Oh, I know. Okay,
Yeah. We got some Akire stuff in the future, which is very exciting.
they're just teasing us right now live.
Yeah, literally.
Jace,
Go ahead, Jace. Go ahead.
I was being quiet. I was like, Jace,
What is
please.
this question?
Go ahead, Jace. Your turn to talk now.
And this is just I've never actually played a campaign of D&D. So can the party at this point viably tuck and run if things got bad enough? Like, would somebody have to bite the dust and take the fall if the party were to do that? And y'all can answer that quickly because I know we're trying to get to meme of the month. But
I think it's hard, you know, it being a podcast puts such a different spin on things, and there is definitely like a drive to just keep everything moving forward. I think in a regular game where you're not like worried about any of that kind of stuff and you're just playing the game, I think totally that's kind of always an option. And if you're like really like thinking about it, like, I mean, it makes sense sometimes. Sometimes there's a bunch of bad guys and you're like and it makes sense for your character to be like, you know what, no, this isn't a movie. 100 people with swords will actually just kill me.
Right. Yeah, right.
I don't have to do this right now. Like,
Got a
like,
blast.
I could do this tomorrow. like maybe I could just back up. So I've been in that situation in a campaign. And it was a situation where just the group just went too far. Like, we kind of, we were just like on a whim, we kind of ended up going into this place, and the DM kind of spun it in some ways, and it was just the way everything lucked out. We kind of ran into the final boss way too soon.
Holy.
And it was like, we were just like, oh, wait, that's where we are? Oh, fuck. And I'll say my character actually had to sacrifice himself to allow the rest of the party to escape. It was awesome. It was super dramatic and it was really cool. But that was a situation where like if we had just 5 minutes before that fight started, if we had just said, you know what, maybe we should just leave. Everyone would have come out of that alive, but we didn't, and we paid for it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's definitely a storytelling thing too as well. When you like traditional D&D game, especially like 1E back in the day, like a lot of the times they were dungeon crawlers where like the goal wasn't to wipe a whole dungeon in one run. It was to go in, get as deep as you can, come out, go to town, rest, buy loot, go back in, come back out, go back in.
Right.
And then so like one dungeon would potentially take a party even like upwards of a month, 2 months, 3 months in game time. But there was maybe no imminent danger. There's a ghost at the bottom of the crypt that you have to seal, but like he's not going anywhere, right? Like it might be like one of those like if you're not careful, he'll break out and the world will end. But it's like kind of positioned as like a far off thing that might happen, right? So like in a lot of adventure paths, and Paizo does a good job of this. There's this sense of urgency that is like presented in a lot of cases.
Yeah, right.
Which makes for good storytelling and like fast-paced like really nice narratives. But like sometimes it's up to the DM to be like, okay, I see what's going on here. Either like I need to shift, what kind of encounters are going to be happening to make this even viable, or like I need to put like some sort of legitimate understanding of, or like a reason for a pause here, right?
Right.
Like, make sure I tell the players, look, I told you that, this person is going to be kidnapped or this person is going to be executed soon, but just so you know, that's like a week off, right? Like it's not going to happen in an hour. Which actually comes up really nicely for the Starfinder campaign. We actually
Shut
had
up,
a conversation
dude.
about this with Zach. No,
We're not
this
gonna
is
talk
a
about
good
it.
example. This is a good example because we were super concerned about the timeline of things
Right.
and how they were going to go. And
Hey,
like, there was
spoilers
just
for
a
Starfinder
miscommunication.
ahead.
I'm going to keep it really, really broad.
Hey.
And so we were just like unsure about there was a miscommunication and like we thought that we had to act fast because that's what we do in this
Like,
show
within
a
a
lot of the
day.
time. And Zach was like, no, like you still have time. And like
Right,
that
yeah.
was just like such
Yeah.
a foreign concept to us at that point.
Yeah.
That things really had the opportunity to kind of slow down a little bit. So I do think that's like definitely interesting to keep in mind. And it just really depends on what story you and your DM are trying to tell.
Right.
And the urgency that you want to put in there or not. So
Right. We are getting close. We're running out of time super fast here. So let's go ahead and move on to the beautiful meme of the month, which we had some good contenders here. And I believe we're going to start out just by saying that there are some Starfinder spoilers ahead here for the most recent episode. But the winner was just so good. And it's funny because I had mentioned something in the most recent episode of the Bangarang Gang that it was like Edna Mode looking through the tablet. But I actually was thinking of Megamind. So the winner of this week's meme of the month, we'll go ahead and do the winner and then the honorable mention. So the most memorable memes, absolutely, we have Too Much Dog. Winning no BP as Megamind looks down into the camera, which is just very funny.
so good.
I think this is the third time that somebody on the show at the time has won this. So
That's awesome.
Dylan, congratulations.
It's rigged. It's rigged.
Great meme. No, it's hilarious.
Meme lord.
And
Oh
then
my God.
The honorable mention for the week is none other than Deo Dunga dropping the Renale thinking about the elephant people, and it's just the video of one of my favorite TikTokers who is actually talking about like the side quest that you forgot to do and the whole town burned down. Whoops. So congratulations, Deo Dunga, for honorable mention, but very good memes this week. We'll go ahead and Dylan, we'll go ahead and send those out here in the next week. You'll get
Oh
yourself
my
a new
God.
one of these dope, basically good stickers and an emote sticker as well. Really good time this week. I loved this Starfinder episode this week. It was such a good time. So if you haven't listened to the Bangarang Gang, go listen. It's on its own feed. And episode 18 will be releasing on the Bangarang Gang feed next week, next Monday. So get caught up. It's a good time. Moving on and really wrapping up this episode here, we move into our final episode of Barzillai's Revenge. So this is this week's episode. It's just a big fat fight scene. The whole thing is one big fight scene, and we're moving into it. Actually wraps up with a kind of a lead into next week, which is going to be another fight scene. So it's been a very, very long combat. There's been some chatter in the Discord. There's been some, even when we were recording this, it was like, okay, Chance just rolled crits too many times. Like, we just got absolutely demolished by these floating ghosts of the previous mayor and a haunt and bells ringing, and it really was a nightmare. And we all were wounded. Urkel got downed, and he's down to wounded too. His ferocity kicked in, which is great. But not a great spot really to be in right now. And I wanna just kick it off with Dylan. You have a great question about some house rules surrounding crits that I'd love to discuss before we wrap up this evening.
In the last like 2 episodes, y'all have crit. Both the players and Chance have crit, and y'all have like dealt devastating blows to each other. And with y'all's house rule about like rolling for body part damage and like the crit die, like I think that's cool and like very realistic, but like I've listened to a lot of podcasts, D&D podcasts, and I don't like Pathfinder 1E's stat damage system, doing like strength damage and like dex damage and stuff like that, because it's OP for the DM to nerf the players. Like 1 failed fortitude save and you have 4 strength damage, 2 dex damage, and 1 con damage, and you're screwed. You're just nerfed to the ground.
It's also very complicated.
And it's so hard to keep track of. Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the point of my question, was just like, it's hard to keep track of. It nerfs the PCs so much, and the PCs are the main characters of the story, quote unquote. Like, while there is chance of character death and like new characters being introduced, like we've been with these characters for 100 episodes. We've been with these characters for 2 books. Like, these are the main characters. They should have some kind of plot armor. Like, I don't know if y'all should need to like argue with Chance and like fight for your case, but like Frizzigig's hand being crushed, Kaleri's like stomach being like scorched, the episode before Kaleri's leg being like almost cut off, you know, just like
leg.
Exactly, like you crit a monster and like did a bunch of damage to it and stuff, but like it died as expected. The monster died at the end of the episode, but like Kaleri is not dead, and when this combat inevitably ends, Kaleri is going to suffer damage for several episodes that you, Ronnie, the player, will have to keep track of, and Frizzigig, the player, will have to keep track of. And you're just nerfing your character, who is, you know, our boy, our girl, you know, like the listeners, you know, like, where's the plot armor when you need it, kind of thing. Like, I think you need to revisit. Personally, me as I'm pleading to Chance, like, I think you need to revisit this house rule a little bit, because this is a little too reminiscent of Pathfinder 1E's like dex and strength and con damage, and it's kind of annoying, you know. I think it is realistic, and I think it does paint a good picture. Like Frizzigig's hand being crushed by a mace while he's like feeding like grabbing a potion, like, makes sense. It's cool. It's realistic, but at the same time, like, can't Aaron just like, you know, magically kiss it better at the end of the episode, please?
Yeah. I think as a body part crit apologist here, I do think that like there is a lot of merit to the system that we kind of have in place. I agree with you. Whenever you were like presenting it, I was like, no, that makes sense, right? It's like monsters are supposed to die, especially like non-boss monsters, right? That's the goal. But like we live with these for however long the status lasts, right? It's like that's probably gonna, in some cases, like a hand that like can't be used anymore, that likely is gonna go on for at least like more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 encounters. That might be a permanent thing almost, you know. So like I do think that that's important to keep in consideration. And like maybe that looks more like making things that are like super game changing a little bit less likely for the players, because especially like when we were fighting the Velstrax, right? It's like I cut its arm off, but it has regeneration. And so like in a case like that, maybe it's better to be like, you cut its arm off and you halt its regeneration for X amount of turns, right? Like something that makes it seem a little bit more fair in that case, I think is fair. But I also just love the heightened risk that is involved. I love the storytelling potential that is there. And like I think that that's one of those things where also like a lot of the cases, this will last until you're healed, right? Like this will last until Aaron can stitch you up, like my leg. And then like it's very rarely like Chance got multiple crits, so like I've got a 3rd degree burn that's gonna last for a week, and Frizzgig has a completely disabled hand. So I think that like this is a little bit unordinary, you know, how much it's occurred in this episode and how severe that they've been, like really haven't happened, and we've had the system in place for like quite a while now. So I think it's like I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. Right now I like it, but like I could see a reason for like wanting to maybe shift it a little bit to give the players a little bit of more security.
I think
that would be
I think the only reason I gripe about it at all is because y'all don't roll to confirm crits. Like y'all just if it's a natural 20, it crits. You know, like y'all don't roll again to see if it confirms. You know, y'all just take it as it is, and that's cool because that's more satisfying as the player. But at the same time, y'all have added on top of that the crit cards and the body part damage.
I will say I personally, if it's, you know, we've only used the dice for a little bit. I think I personally like the crit cards more. And I like them. I honestly overall I like them both. There's something about the cards that feels a little more fun for me, but there is like sometimes Chance will have to sit there and like he'll pull one and be like, that doesn't make any sense, and I'll have to go through like 5, which is also kind of dumb.
Pause for edit.
Pause for yeah. With the dice, I will say, the odds of Frizzigig's hand getting demolished so bad is a 0.139% chance of happening, and the odds of that happening like twice in a row, like it did with Kaleri and I, are 0.0001.
pulling out the stats.
Like,
Gotcha.
So
I
like
mean-
it does kind of. So like I agree with you when it's like when it all is so condensed like that, it does feel like a lot. But I think for me personally, I think it's a lot. When it happens, in a way where the odds make sense, like if it's like if it is like once in 1,000, it's a cool way to give a fight a little more like permanence. I don't know. There's pros and cons to both, right? There are good things and bad things about like we do the fight, we move on to the next episode, and like that like pace continues forward and it's always moving forward. And there are also good things and bad things for things to go over several episodes.
That definitely helps put it in perspective a little bit.
And and I think it was just kind of a like I'm with you a little bit, like when the odds just don't work in your favor and then you get like double screwed twice in a row.
I think the DM, I'm not trying to crap on Chance, but I think the DM does, and I think Chance does a fantastic job, but I think sometimes like you need that, like you need to remember that the characters do need a bit of plot armor. Just a tiny,
trust me,
just a smidgen.
He gives us.
I know he does. I know he does.
I
dude.
like that we
That's
are
why I'm
shitting
so
on
hesitant.
Chance without him
That's
being
the-
here.
I'm
That's my
so
favorite
hesitant
part.
to crap on Chance because he's not here to defend himself, and I know he already gives and gives and gives.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
gives a
So-
lot of plot armor to us as
Yeah.
is, but
And it,
I
yeah,
get
it just
the frustration.
it's situation to situation. Like there are some times where like I'm with you. I'm like, man, like you know, like oh, like maybe like give me a little more. And there are other times where I'm like, nah, man, like don't hold back. Honestly, with the hand thing, that's like me personally as the player was like, this is fucking sick.
And it's your
Like,
hand, dude.
as
So
a plot point. Like this is cool. Like this is like cool storytelling, and it is something that has personally never happened to me as a player. like a permanent, a more permanent feeling. How you say it?
Injury.
Something when
That's
Frizzigig's
never
an
happened to a
old
character
man.
like
When
that.
Frizzigig's an old man, he just has like arthritis in his left hand because it just
Yeah.
got smashed by a ghost.
Right.
Yeah, it becomes a new kind of puzzle or obstacle to overcome, which I think
Right.
is kind of neat. So yeah, I will say like sometimes I am with you, and other times I am totally opposite.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of depends situation to situation.
Deo Duncan put a good comment in the chat here. He just said the other side is Chance's commitment to letting the dice tell the story, which I respect.
Yes.
I think that's really good.
Which is hard
good
as a
thing.
DM.
Well,
Yeah.
so
and
hard
it
to
sucks
do
when
that.
you roll 4 crits, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's really bad.
Well-
Also sucks when your party like one turns the
Right,
the bottom
right.
of
It
the
goes both
chapter.
ways. Right.
in a world where you've got enough plot armor that I think none of you will die, it adds like an added level of danger,
Right.
to
Right.
combat.
Exactly. There's that
Amen.
actual fear of like this likely, one of us will probably die before the end.
Yeah,
of it.
I mean, I've got my money
Yeah.
on it, but
Multiple.
still.
Yeah.
Who do we think is gonna die first?
Let's
James.
roll the die. Okay, low key, like I don't want to say goodbye to any of these characters, but I'm so excited to be able to write the music for a character death. I'm just putting that out there.
know, dude.
If Aaron dies, I'm out. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, the show's over. If Aaron dies, no one's.
You
gonna
don't know
stand
about
for that.
Aaron's little brother,
Right, just the cheap like
Zarin.
Zarin, my brother. He's also a wizard.
It's the same character, just different font, guys.
This is my brother,
Twin brother I never knew
Darren.
about.
Darren sucks. We don't allow Darren in the party.
Yeah, Darren got kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
Let's get a Darren hero card.
Darren is going to be on Hero Duels voting
No.
next quarter.
Oh my gosh.
Before we end, we are out of time here. So, Jace, I wanted to allow you one more question out of your kind of pool of generic questions that we can spend some time on before we wrap here.
Okay, so I had I guess 2 questions, and I'm gonna go with I guess going off of what we were just talking about, Ronnie. Last time I was on, I just put money on that Kaleri wouldn't make it through that arc, and you've made it through. You made it through that arc, which is very impressive to me. Will Kaleri make it through this arc? And if she does, who won't? Because I think this is it. Like the stakes
Oh my
have
gosh.
been raised.
Oh my
The
gosh.
stakes have been raised to a level. We're going into our 3rd episode of the coffee shop fight. Okay, somebody's not making it. I think it's Kaleri. Make your case that it's not Kaleri.
Well, I don't think I can make the case that it's not Kaleri, because I think we've talked about like our party composition is kind of a spear, and Kaleri is the tip of the spear. And like if like she's the first one to like go in and is
Right.
typically the last one to come out. And I think that's very normal for like your fighter or your frontline is typically the most likely to die, just because they're the first point of contact. I will say, if anybody's gonna die, it's probably Kaleri. But if it's not Kaleri, I have a feeling that Urkel has lived a little too long. He's escaped death a few too many times, which
No.
I
A
am
little
interested
too
because
long.
we do have the Shrine to Desna now. And we have the ability to keep bodies fresh for a long time. And Aaron, like, there's a spell there that like you can revive someone. So like for somebody to like actually like fully die at this point, it either has to be like a save or suck where you get sent to another plane, or like you just have to get eviscerated, right? Like you're just pulverized and your body is gone. So like I'm almost more inclined to say if anybody's gonna die, it's gonna be a TPK, because at that point, like if none of us
Right.
make it out, nobody gets revived.
Yeah.
Or a situation where maybe 2 of us die and the other 2 have to leave immediately and can't save our bodies. Or like Silas was saying earlier, I can see primarily Kaleri or Urkel, just based on the style of play that we have. staying back and saying, "Leave me," like we're all gonna die unless you leave. And then I also see Aaron and Frizzigig and whoever else other than me or Urkel is not there saying, "Fuck you, we're dying together." So like that also, you know.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean,
So I don't know. We might
there's-
the end of the Basically Good podcast might come sooner than later. We'll see.
There's a great point that, I mean, if Aaron goes down, if Frizz goes down, we're all dead. Like, we're all dead. You know, like, unless we run away with bodies, like, that's a TPK, right?
Right.
If it's
feel like-
we're so low anyway, and then Aaron gets whacked, Frizz gets whacked, what's there left to do, right? Like, we are
Right.
in
I don't think there will be a TPK, but I would to seriously answer your question. I think Claire is probably most likely to die, and then Urkel's right behind her. So
If Mama Aaron can't make it out with one of your bodies, you know, just like if there is a TPK and Aaron is the sole survivor and he just takes one of your bodies back to, like, I feel like if there is a TPK -1, Aaron is the sole survivor by some sheer luck, and he
Right.
takes one of your bodies back to the Desna dimension and reses you, and then that's just tragedy. Like that is just Aaron
Ugh.
crying with someone's limp body as he like ritual resurrects them, and that is what is that? That's like darkest dimension,
timeline.
Aaron.
Right.
Yeah,
It's the
dark
Brian- it's the
time.
Brian
That's
timeline.
that's
It's
the
the
dark
Brian
timeline,
timeline.
Aaron. Yeah.
Right.
And that's just horrible. Like I don't want to imagine that ever.
I know
yeah.
it's just like heart
So rough.
wrenching. Oh my gosh.
Well, I think we are in a spot where it can go any way. Moving on to this next episode next week, we'll see what happens as we go into our third episode of Combat. Want to thank you guys. Want to thank everybody who has come out tonight. Ronnie, Silas, thanks so much for joining us again. And for our new guests, thank you, Dylan and Jace, for all your great questions, great conversation, goofs and gaffs. We're out of time. We're going to close out today. But just a couple of quick reminders before we are done here. We want to, if you are watching for the first time, if you're still on stream and you are just getting a kick out of whatever has been talked about tonight, we have a Discord we want you to join. Head on over to Basically G Pod. Grab our Discord link off the link tree. Join us. We want to have you around to talk more about kind of what we talked about tonight. It's just a freaking blast. So join our Discord. If you'd like to support us on Patreon. That's really the best way to support us. Head on over to we got a bunch of links going all over the place, but nothing's happening. No links are showing up, so that's awesome. But patreon.com/basicallygoodpodcast to see all those tiers available there. We're headed towards our new goal where we're going to get a new show on the Basically More podcast. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. What's going on here? Get out of here. We're going to the slideshow button. Let's just restart the music. There's the ha-has. Okay, bye.
Dad, turn it off.
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
Matt, please.
Working on it.
Get me out of here.